Hello, welcome to this week's Battle of the Ports as we take a look at what is arguably the very first true Japanese RPG as we know them today. This is Falcom's Dragon Slayer, the first hit the NEC PC 8801 in October 1984. The original PC 8801 version was released as Level 1.0 and Level 1.1, but Level 2.0, as you're seeing here, was later released as an improved version that focused on game balance adjustments. Level 2.0 includes rule changes such as the monsters on crosses cannot move. It also includes improvements to the title screen, in-game music, and changes to the attack sounds. It also adds more stages. Other changes include screen turning to red when there are fewer hit points left, and the balance being adjusted to about half of the amount of the experience points gained from the monsters. While Dragon Slayer is considered the original action role-playing game, it's actually a time-limited turn-based role-playing puzzle game in which the player acts while a human-shaped icon in the lower right corner of the screen, called an indicator, moves from left to right. It wasn't until Xanadu that the game became a fully action RPG. To shorten the development time, Falcom had Yoshio Kiya and Tadanobu Inoue develop separate Dragon Slayer versions and compete against each other. Yoshio Kiya's Dragon Slayer was ultimately selected, and Tadanobu Inoue's Dragon Slayer was even featured in the Login Programming Olympics. Since this game, games directed by Yoshio Kiya at Falcom have been referred to as the Dragon Slayer series. In the game, you explore the dungeon, defeat the dragon, and collect all the crowns scattered across the map to return home to clear the stage. The total number of stages varies depending on the system and version. The original Dragon Slayer does look very primitive these days and even plays in quite a primitive way, but if this game didn't exist, would Japanese RPGs exist today as we know them? With Japan having quite a few different PC formats around in the 80s, it's no surprise to see Dragon Slayer was ported to those as well. The next version came out in November 1984 for the Fujitsu FM-7. As you can see, it's very much like the PC 88 version in terms of looks and sounds. And as to be expected, it plays just the same as well. The Sharp X1 was next getting its port of Dragon Slayer on December 20th, 1984. This version looks slightly better than the previous two versions, simply because of the more defined main character. Actually, the in-game graphics are very similar as is the audio. Unfortunately, I couldn't figure out the controls in this version. Either the emulator is set up strangely, or this game really does have odd controls. Not to be left out, the MSX also got in on the action on July 15, 1985 for the tape release and the ROM release coming a few months later in September. Graphically, this is a step down from the Sharp X1 release, but unlike all the versions we've seen so far, in this version you don't have to push the direction for every step you take. Now you can just hold the direction in whatever direction you want to move. So that's a nice quality of life improvement. Now here's a surprise. Dragon Slayer actually got ported by Epoch to their very own Super Cassette version in April 1986. Not something I suspect even at the time anyone could have predicted. Surprisingly, it looks nicer than the MSX version in some respects and plays quite similar to that version. We even get some in-game music, which is a first for the ports. Many years passed until the Gameboy release, also by Epoch, hit Japanese stores on August 12, 1990. This can be considered a step backwards in some ways, as the scrolling is block by block, despite it being a game where you keep your direction pressed to move. I can understand why they did this in order to emulate the feel of the original game, but here it just feels slow and jerky. The rest of the controls are fairly done, considering the original game used the keyboard. What we have here using the limited buttons of the Game Boy works rather well. The last true port of Dragon Slayer went to the Sega Saturn on November 6, 1997, as part of the Falcom Classic series. This version contains two game modes, being Original or Saturn. No matter what you choose, you will be presented with the more modern visuals and audio. The difference between the two modes, as far as I can see, is just that one has a more simplified HUD. There are many quality of life improvements in this version, with the biggest being the automatic item pickup when you hold down the pickup button. In other versions, you had to press the button every time you wanted to collect something. I do like the new audio in this version too. It's quite mellow and relaxing. And let's take a look at all those versions of Dragon Slayer running side by side.